Ladies and gentlemen, come one, come all, welcome to the 2022 Electromagnetic Universe World Expo. For the next presenters, we have Robert Hawthorne and Benjamin Hyde. Robert Hawthorne is a Navy veteran who attended Salt Lake Community College and got his associates in electronics engineering. Also wrote a peer-reviewed paper on Upheaval Dome, being created by electric discharge and not impact. Benjamin Hyde is a science-presenting pyrotechnic performing explorer. While he did graduate college at Utah Valley University with a degree in electrical automation, he is quick to point out that school is not only or best place to become educated. As a father of 8 kids, he is a ready audience on which to show and tell his latest science projects. Science runs strong in his family, and his wife is just getting ready to graduate as a biologist in 2023. 2 of his favorite statements are that there are no wrong ideas in science because science is about exploring the unknown, and dogma has no place in science.
Hello, everybody. This is Benjamin Hyde. I will be presenting twin comets recorded through Antiquity and how they affected world culture. This presentation was put together by Robert F. Hawthorne Jr. and presented by yours truly. Why? Because Bob is having LASIK surgery and is unable to see his wonderful presentation. So since we work together a lot, he very magnanimously asked me to present it. I put in a little bit, and as you know, we're at the Electromagnetic Universe World Expo. Here we go. Ancient artwork and the legends that accompany them, along with petroglyphs the world over, illustrate a horned deity or chaos monster involved with some kind of interaction with twins. Now, these twins can be represented by warrior heroes, twin serpents, or even winged animals. In this presentation, the authors will contend that a plasma instability, after the manner of Dr. Anthony Peratt's experiments in Los Alamos laboratories, formed a plasma sheath enveloping not only the controversial polar configuration, or PC, in the electric universe, EU, but also affected a pair of comets, which were simultaneously present. Evidence of the personification of these twin comets will be provided in the form of petroglyphs, legends, and ancient artwork from around the world, as well as a recent discovery of potential twin comets, Comet 252P Linear and Comet P 2016 BA14, orbiting in the projected vicinity of where a polar configuration could have been located. Now, the object of our presentation are these. Number 1, to discuss the origins of the twin comet theory, or TCT as we like to abbreviate it. Number 2, we're going to provide evidence in the form of petroglyphs, artwork, legends from ancient cultures around the globe supporting the twin comet theory. And number 3, we're going to demonstrate using the recent discovery of potential twin comets, linear and pan-stars, I'm going to abbreviate that, what a polar configuration accompanied by twin comets would look like compared to the above-mentioned artwork and petroglyphs. This is pretty fun. Hope you're going to like this. So we're going to start here where Bob and I live, which is in Utah. Just down the road from us is a place called the San Rafael Swell in Utah. And down there we've got, as you can see, petroglyphs and pictographs. Let's show you one. The story begins where Robert Hawthorne's last story ended, if you follow his work at all, and that is at the San Rafael Swell in Utah. And here is where we saw the seed, where he saw the seed of the twin comet theory was planted. Now, if you notice in the upper left, there are 2 long streamers, look, with a head on them, that could be interpreted in a whole bunch of different ways. But to Robert and I's eyes, it looked like twin comets. So this was the genesis of the idea. Now let's start unpacking this a little bit. We're going to come back to this picture. So if you didn't study it enough, you can always look it up online or just come back, like I said. Now, for those of you who have seen the video Symbols of an Alien Sky by David Talbot for the Thunderbolts project, you may be familiar with this image. It's a pictograph on a panel called the Head of Sinbad in the San Rafael Swell. And it has images of what could be pairs or twins of comets interacting with some horned being holding a serpent. We're going to see this pictograph again and again. It's fascinating to watch. And one of the things that's always tricky with interpreting pictographs is that unlike our modern comic books that have panels on them, we don't have a separation of panels. So we're always, guessing where one image ends and another one starts. But bear with us. I think we're going to make a pretty good case. Robert then saw on a post on the Electric Universe Archaeology group on Facebook by Marco Malorgio featuring the ancient Chinese Silk Atlas of Comets. He felt more confident that the previous pictographs, petroglyphs, were examples of plasma displays involving comets and the polar configuration. As you look at these, you see that there are numerous different types of comets. Now that's really interesting because in our lifetime, most of us have just seen comets and they all look essentially the same, but clearly there are others who have looked up and seen comets with a little bit different features on them. And it's those features that we think are indicative of our story. Now, is Bob the first one to have this idea? No, not at all. Let me introduce you to William Comets Beaumont. The author, Robert Hawthorne, researched if any other person may have developed a twin comet theory. And he discovered William Comets Beaumont. And Comets Beaumont, who will be discussed more later, here's a little bit of information about him. He was a British author, journalist, Daily Mail lecturer, and editor of the Bystander and then the Graphic, 1932. These are British periodicals. He wrote about catastrophism decades before Velikovsky, which is interesting. In 1925, his first of several publications, The Riddle of the Earth, was released. Now, he was discredited, as a lot of guys in our movement are, for the above-mentioned publications based on extreme catastrophic theories involving double comets, which he believed impacted the Earth, causing the great deluge of biblical times. It's interesting. A lot of us thought that Velikovsky was the first. He was not. A little bit more about William Comets Beaumont. In an article written in 2017 by Ashley Cowie titled Scotland's Catastrophic Comet Conspiracy, she writes, quote, according to Beaumont, Plato's ancient account of the Atlantis disaster about 9,000 years ago reported a comet collision with Earth. Beyond the Pillars of Hercules was that publication in the year 1322 BC. And that all mythologies and religions were built around this catastrophic double comet impact and resulting floods. Now, there's a lot there that those of us in the EU community can agree with on that one. But let's go right to the meat of this. And I don't want to say too much, but let me just explain what we have here. On the left is a drawing of a Utah petroglyph by Dr. Anthony Peratt from Los Alamos Laboratories of a plasma instability. This one I like to call the boned fish. That's my word for it. I'm sure it has different names. But of course, it's inverted. It looks like the head's on the bottom. It's got the ribs up the side. But as you can see, Dr. Peratt identified each part of that: the terminus, the plasma column, the Birkeland currents, the diachron instability, and the plasmoids there at the bottom. Now, of course, on the right, we see the pictograph panel, which we saw before, called the Head of Sinbad, where it looks like an inverted Peratt instability, reaching to what we believe are comets. Whoops, got ahead of myself. Now, let's zoom in on these comets and let me show you something interesting. Bob says, here the previous image has been zoomed in upon it in order to compare the alleged comet Serpent's Head of Donati's comet of 1858. The double layers shown in the corona of Donati's comet are remarkably similar to the hair covering the serpent's heads. It's pretty clear if you compare that image to the other side. The similarities are very striking. The image of the pictograph taken in Goblin Valley, Utah, showing a possible horned creature. Also, we're going to claim that it is an inverted Peratt instability, using his hands, which we're thinking possibly comets, interacting with winged creatures, possibly older comet events. Equally fading of the three pairs, the hand-winged creatures, comets, whatever, suggests to this researcher, Bob Hawthorne, possible multiple events occurred involving twins, which we'll discuss a little bit later on in further detail. But it's fascinating to see that there are not one, not two, not even three, but multiple flying creatures. Whether these are the comets, we don't know, but we think that that's a pretty good guess. So we're going to stay in Utah and show you some other interesting pictographs from McConkey Ranch. Now, this is just up the road from where Bob lives in Roosevelt and a couple hours from me. I've been there with him. This was fascinating. We still didn't even get to see all the pictographs. Back to the presentation. Here, the author shows the similarities between the pictographs on the head of Sinbad, which is the top left, in the San Rafael Swell in Utah, to three other images taken by the author of petroglyphs from McConkey Ranch. So top left, San Rafael Swell, head of Sinbad. The other three are the petroglyphs. Now, if you'll notice on the bottom left one, you see what looks like two helmeted figures, or even, I was trying to think of, they look like those sand, not the sand dials, but the, there are two figures. But what's interesting about them, aside from their shape, is the fact that there are two of them and they're right next to each other. Now, as for the Horned Serpent, just look in the next panel and you'll see that we clearly have a very old and etched anthropomorphic figure that is horned. If you look up, you see this. Now, this swirl has been talked about in many circles as representing a portal or something else. We think is very clear that it's the plasma display, and the fact that it has two horns at the top is very suggestive to us. Also at McConkey Ranch is this. The author believes that this hybrid glyph is a representation of the polar configuration, with an arrow piercing the centers with what could be a red anode glow. Now, there appears to be two bodies outside of the polar configuration, and those are what we think could be the twin comets. Okay? So now let's move from petroglyphs into Native American legends. Like, are there any stories associated with twin comets? Well, here we go. Let's start with the Navajo hero twins legend. The Navajo and Ute tribes of the American Southwest are the indigenous peoples who discovered the Fremont-style petroglyphs. And the author found it very interesting that the Navajo have a legend involving twin warriors or heroes. They were called Monster Slayer and Born of Water. What were their weapons? Lightning. I love this. What was it for? To fight chaos monsters. Here we have a very old photograph from 1904 of two indigenous peoples dressed up as Monster Slayer and Born of Water. Now pay attention to the painting on their chest. That is really interesting from an electric universe perspective. You see the shapes that we have seen over and over and over again. A quote from the book, The Legend of the Navajo Hero Twins by Don Mose Jr. says, quote, Sunbearer opens the last door. The room was dark and gloomy, infilled with smoke. Occasionally, sheet lightning flashed to illuminate huge weapons that hung around the walls. Sunbearer stepped into the room and went to each of the four walls of the dwelling and took down his mighty weapons. What were those weapons? Lightning, sheet lightning, deadly sunbeam, and fatal rainbow. Isn't that fascinating how every time we see a story, the weapons associated with it are always lightning, thunder, something to do with the sky or electricity? when you see this enough times, you just realize that, oh, these guys just weren't talking about little terrestrial storms. They were talking about something very big seen globally. But I digress. Let's continue. Let's talk about the historic Ubichi. And I'm going to slaughter some of these names. Good luck if you want to try and pronounce them. The Ubichi Pictorial Navajo rug. I love this rug. And there's a bunch of reasons. We're going to come back to it again. But this image is of a Navajo rug circa 1920 that was recently sold on the website Charlie's Navajo Rugs. Here's the description. Quote, Ubichi Navajo rug, male Ubichi with corn plants above and below them, lightning bolts between them and at their sides. Why? Why do they have a rug depicting corn and lightning bolts? Now, if you look carefully at the corn images above and below, you'll see, yeah, you can see how that could be corn, but it could also very easily be one of the Pyrrhat instabilities, and I personally think it is. So we've talked about the Navajo and Ute. Let's talk about other Native American twin hero warrior legends. Arikara, the Arikara tribe twin heroes. The Arikara tribe, located in western North Dakota and surrounding areas, tells the story of the hero twins Drink's Brain Soup, yeah, that's his name, and his brother Longteeth. Quote, Drink's Brain Soup is the name of an Arikara hero, one of a pair of magical twins. Despite his gruesome-sounding name, Drink's Brain Soup is not a monster or a cannibal. His pregnant mother was killed, and his father took him from her womb and sustained him on a broth made from deer brains in the place of mother's milk. His twin brother Longteeth was magically generated from the afterbirth. Moving on, the Caddo tribe, twin heroes. In Texas, the Caddo tribe's Village Boy and Wild Boy are twin heroes of legend. In this story, Kadaja, the chaos monster, kills the boy's mother while her husband is hunting. Both children survive, but Village Boy is found by his father, while Wild Boy is lost in the wilderness. Eventually, the two brothers become reunited and move to avenge their mother's murder. The twins are associated with thunder and lightning. Once again, I am going to burn through this because there's quite a few of them. The twin heroes of the Iowa tribe, Dor and Wahedra, are the twin monster hunters of the Iowa tribe of southwestern Minnesota, one being uncontrollable and chaotic. Let's now move down the Mississippi and talk about the Choctaw Nation. Especially in the Mississippi Band, a legend of hero twins are told of, quote, emerging from a crack in the back of a raccoon-faced horned serpent. Now, here we have the first instance of twins coming from a horned serpent. Please remember this point and this idea. We're going to continue. The hero twins of the Seminole tribe, the Little Thunders, were the hero twins of the Miccosukee legend. I know I slaughtered that. I apologize. And were the chiefs of the water spirits. One brother was the flash of lightning, and the other was the sound of thunder. Isn't this fascinating how we just keep seeing the same motif coming over and over and over? This is one of my personal favorites. You got to do your own personal study on the Zuni twin heroes. Quote, with a magical rainbow and cosmic lightning arrows, the twin heroes set tremendous conflagrations over the face of the earth, scorching it dry and hardening the ground. Now, we have heard this stories that over and over, at least those of us who have done a lot of research into this, about how the earth was not a good place to have it because it was so wet, aka the Great Deluge, the flood. And actually, it was the story that these comets helped dry out the earth. We will see that motif occurring over and over again. Okay, so we spent a lot of time in North America. Let's go Mesoamerica and South America with twin hero legends. Are there some down there? You better believe it. The Bacari tribe, twin heroes, which is located in Brazil, has this twin hero legend. Quote, Kari and Kame are the creator gods in Bakari legend, adapting the world for humans to live adapting the world for humans to live on, as well as teaching them to use fire and how to hunt. The Aztec twin hero legend. Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca are the warrior heroes and creator deities of the Aztecs, and are said to be brothers, but not mentioned as twins. They are often written competing with each other. One example is when they fought over who would become the sun. However, they are also seen as allies, and both are considered protectors of the world. Isn't that interesting? We have two stories of the twins, which, up until this point have been kind of chaotic and destructive, but now they're being looked at as protectors of the world, which is interesting. This is pretty cool. Although the author could not find a legend of hero twins from the Olmec culture, he was able to find the image to the left where the twins are facing off against the jaguar. And if you look at this, they're both right in line facing the jaguar. Now, these statues were found in El Azuzul, deep inside Olmec territory. And again, what's interesting about that picture, well, there's a lot of things interesting about the picture, but just please pay attention to the fact that the photo is of the sculptures in situ. That means that's the way they found them in place when they were uncovered. They weren't moved into that place to make a dramatic effect. That's the way they were found. Now, that's pretty profound when you think about it. The fact that the twins were approaching the jaguar, quote unquote, from the same side reminded the author of the petroglyph image from Three Fingers Canyon. Remember, this is the image that we started off the whole presentation with, where the twin comets are approaching an animal figure, which could be the quote-unquote jaguar from the Olmec statues. Now, there's a lot of images in there, but can you see a clearly discernible animal figure being approached at or facing two possible comets? Yes, it's right there. It's right there. We've got a four-legged creature with horns below what we believe is the polar configuration, right there with two comets approaching. So is the Olmec statues, the only one? No, it's not. The Maya hero twins. The Maya are interesting on this subject because their histories, they recorded two sets of twins and two separate events. The first set of twins in Mayan culture were named Hun and Hunapa, and Vubquub Hunapa. After being lured into the underworld, the twins were tricked into several challenges where failure resulted in death. After failing one of the tasks, they were sacrificed and buried. However, the head of Hunapa was severed and put on a spike near a tree at the foot of the World Mountain. Now, those of us who have studied a lot in the EU recognize the word World Mountain. That has been something that David Talbot has done a very good job of explaining what the World Mountain is, where it came from, and all that. A noble daughter approached Hunapa, and the head spoke to her and spit on her palm. This event resulted in her conceiving and eventually birthing a second set of twins, Hunapupa and Expelanque. So now we're left with the possibility of multiple twin comet events. We've talked about twin comets, but were there multiples? Yeah, there might be. These two images really seem to point to the idea that there were multiple twin comet events. Upon reading information about multiple events recorded involving twin heroes, comets, the author immediately recalled these pictographs, which show pairs of what appears to be comets. The history tells of two hero figures at a time, and in the images below, the comets seem to be grouped in pairs. Even the fading of images seem to affect the last two comets equally in the image to the right. And you can see that they're kind of fading off and away. And again, that's where we get into the trouble of, are we looking at something that happened all at once, or are they trying to show an event over time? We're not sure. Nonetheless, that's what we see. And if you understand that as a comet, as anything, recedes from you, it fades from view. Well, is that what we're seeing depicted here? Yeah, it sure might be. This is fun. The Maya hero twins legend. Also, according to the Mayan legend, the twins were not identical. Now, this is another key point I want everyone to pay attention to. They were not identical. Hunahpu, who is described as the eldest of the two, was larger, right-handed, and attributed as more masculine. Expalanque, the younger brother, is described as smaller and left-handed. Now, if you look at these images down here, you'll notice that they look like, the one on the left looks like right and left hands with really long extended fingers, and the image on the right shows more, a closer, it looks like an actual handprint, but they're clearly right and left-handed again. But it doesn't take much to look at that left-hand image and say, well, wait a minute, what if this isn't a hand? What if that is a comet? Would that look like a comet with a very long tail? Yeah, it would. And so now your whole idea is that, wait a minute, is every time we see a hand, is that depicting a hand or a comet? Isn't that an interesting thing to consider? All right. So we've talked about North America, South America. Let's go over to Europe, the Appian Way, and Cernunnos. This is pretty cool. So here's our friend Cummins Beaumont again. Let's tell you what the Appian Way is, or Appian Way. The Appian Way was a crucial road connecting ancient Rome to Brindisi in the southeast. So crucial was the Appian Way that it was also known as Regina Varium, or Queen of the Streets. In the EU, impacts are not needed for comets to inflict damage on Earth, and therefore the authors do not support Cummins Beaumont impact story. He talks about the impact of comets. We're, maybe not. We know that doesn't have to happen. However, it was his reference to Pictish symbols, and I'm going to explain Pictish symbols here in a second, that provide the crucial path to understanding the twin comet theory. It was this connection which caused the authors to revisit the concept, but with electric universe eyes. Ashley Cowie also comments in her article on Beaumont and what he means in his theory. She says, quote, "But aside from being illustrated in medieval ecclesiastical art before 1925, the thought of such cosmic catastrophes never really crossed people's minds. However, it's Robert's strong contention that these illustrations in medieval ecclesiastical art, or Pictish symbols, that are the paving stones in the crucial road or Appian Way to fully understanding the petroglyphs, pictographs, legends, and artwork of our collective ancient past." Okay, so I've talked about that, told you what Pictish symbols are. Let's show you what they are, where they're at. Pictish symbols. The image on the left is a Pictish stone with several symbols that will be discussed in the next few slides. The image on the right is a map of the image on the right is a map of Scotland and the location of known Pictish stones. So when I asked Bob about this, I said, what are Pictish symbols? He said, they are engravings in rock that look like they're pictographs. So they're called Pictish. That's where apparently that word came from. Drawings of Pictish symbols of what could be a double or twin comet event, as well as symbols demonstrating a possible polar configuration in multiple phases. Now, we could spend a lot of time just looking at all the Pictish symbols and that there are, because if these are indicative of the polar configuration, the aurora displays, then this is amazing that we even have all this data. There's a couple of them that we're going to focus on here. If you'd like to see these more, just either look them up or pause the presentation now, take a look at them. You're going to find a lot in these, but I'm going to move on. When comparing the Pictish symbols to the Silk Atlas of comets, one should be able to see a similarity between the double disc and Z-rod Pictish symbols and the barbs on the tails of several different comets. The fact that there are two of them could be a recording of a double or twin comet event. If it is, wow. When comparing the Pictish symbols to the author's picture taken at McConkey Ranch in Utah, one should also see a similarity between the triple disc and crossbar or cauldron Pictish symbol and the hybrid petroglyph pictograph. Now, I want you to notice how the rings inside the cauldron. while the others are on opposing sides. Now, could this be evidence of twin comets in proximity to a fixed polar configuration? We're going to make that argument that it is. Also, the author found that the use of the term cauldron quite interesting, and we'll discuss that here in just a moment. Give you another couple seconds to just look at these symbols. Okay, deep breath. Here we go. Now that the evidence of twin comets in the form of picture symbols being recorded in Europe has been presented, is there any evidence of a horned deity or a horned serpent, as per the previous stories of a horned serpent mentioned in the Americas? Yes, here it comes. Cernunnos. There is a rammed horned serpent which appears in Roman Celtic areas in Europe, as well as in Gaul. Gaul is, of course, ancient France and surrounding areas. In fact, these areas were closely associated with the horned or antlered god Cernunnos. And the horned serpent appears three times on the Gunderstrup cauldron. Now, this cauldron was found in Denmark. It was unearthed. It was in pieces. It was put back together, and we have a beautiful picture of it right here. Even though Cernunnos is labeled as an antlered or horned deity, author Caesar Serwith writes on his website about his doubt of them actually being antlers. Okay, so we're not looking at an anthropomorphized person or beast. We're probably looking at an anthropomorphized plasma display. Here we go. He says, quote, "I am not convinced that what Cernunnos wears on his head are indeed antlers, since they have no tines." I'm correcting that. It's also unsure whether they are growing from his head or are a part of a crown. And of course, if you've studied the Electric Universe Thunderbolts videos for a while, you know that the whole idea of a crown comes from these ancient plasma displays that people saw in the skies. And that's where that whole idea came from. This is something I didn't know. This was fascinating. Cernunnos, the author of the Thunderbolts Project video series, Discussions of an Alien Sky. I highly recommend that. If you have not seen that, please go watch that. David Talbot states in episode 18, The Myth of the Heavenly Twins, quote, "But why was the Ka hieroglyph simply a pair of arms?" Our explanation is that the crescent form, when seen behind the polar column, that is so fundamental to this reconstruction, readily provoked an imaginative interpretation as two arms or wings. End of quote. He further explains that this crescent was the light on a rim of Saturn reflected from the sun, and of course we don't argue that at all. Now what's interesting is when Bob first showed me this, I didn't know that Ka, the symbol of Ka, was two outstretched arms, like what you see there. Go look it up. Now that's significant in making our point of the double comet theory because of what's coming up right here. Look at this. I'm going to read it, what Bob says, and I'll talk about it in a second. However, in the image below excuse me, in the image below of a panel on the Gunderstock cauldron, we see similar imagery of the Egyptian Ka, the raised arms, only this shows the arms holding two dragons, which is our contention we think are the twin comets. We think that those twin comets entered the cosmic theater of the polar configuration, or even the breakup of the polar configuration for a time. This right here leads me to believe that the twins talking about in Antiquity, a lot of people are going to say, well, they were Mars and Venus. Yeah, maybe, except right here, we have Ka, the sun deity, represented by the two upstretched arms, holding on to two separate entities. Is that the only version of this that we've ever seen? No, it's not. There's a lot more. Now, the authors would like to express that from this point, geographically, there is much more imagery throughout Greece, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. Yes, there is. And a simple search on the topic, quote, Master of Animals, or Pontiatheron, could reveal a plethora of artwork for those with Electric Universe eyes will enjoy. And yes, it is fascinating. Now, the authors would also like to take the time to suggest that the YouTube channel Kronos, who has done an outstanding and extensive amount of research using the mentioned images and artwork from that area, supporting the theory that these events were in fact plasma phenomenon on a global scale and seen on a global scale. Question. This, I think, is the most basic question for this whole presentation. Have twin comets ever been witnessed by astronomers? Because if they never have, then everything that we've set up to this point is just a wild bedtime story. But they have. The twin comets, Lanier and Pan-STARRS. In March 2016, NASA published the article titled A Tale of Two Comets. Here they identified two comets that would pass by the Earth toward the end of the month. Comets 252P Lanier and P2016 BA14, also known as Pan-STARRS. If you look at that image, you can see the Earth is right there in the middle, Pan-STARRS on the right, Lanier on the left. Quote, Comet Pan-STARRS follows an unusually similar orbit to that of Comet Lanier, which was discovered by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Lincoln Near Earth Asteroid Research, Lanier, survey on April 7th, 2000. The apparent coincidence may be an indication of the twin nature in that comet. That's from NASA. Here's a little graphic that shows the orbit of Lanier. And the next one, oh, I think we're missing an image there. Pan-STARRS, I don't know why the image of Pan-STARRS, it's supposed to be right next to each other and it's not there. If you look it up online, you will see that those orbits are essentially in the same spot of the sky. In this image, the creator of the YouTube channel Astrograv ran a simulation backwards in time with the data given to see if they were ever a single comet that fragmented. Now, to be fair, we need a lot more information to confirm that these are the twins of legend, but they do provide that what a twin comet event would look like when the polar configuration was present. And as the viewer can see, all the planets and the comets present, with the exception of Saturn, which was said to have gone away. Astrograv, go check it out. That's a fun one. Now we're back to my favorite rug again. Look at this. Another interesting fact the author noticed was that the comets aren't the same size. Excuse me. It states in the article, quote, P2016 BA14 is roughly half the size of Comet Lanier and might be a fragment that calved off sometime in the larger comet's past. Now, if we go back to the stories of antiquity of ancient comets and brothers, we see similarities developing. This goes along with what the Mayan account covered earlier in this discussion, in where we said, quote, in prehistoric sculptures and paintings, the hero twins aren't identical twins. The older twin, Hunahpu, is depicted as larger than his brother twin. And again, if you look at the rug, you will notice clearly that the two figures there are not identical. Could Comet 67P separate into the twins? In an article published in 2015, the ESA attributes the breakup of water and carbon dioxide molecules erupting from the surface of Comet 67P to electrons and not photons. But what I want people to focus on, and that's fine, great. We've got electron discharge. Yes, we know that. It's a plasma. We've got a plasma displays with comets. We know that comets are electrical in nature, the tails of them. But if you look right here in the middle of this comet, 67P, you'll notice that there's a rise on the left, a rise on the right. It is a double-lobed comet. And right in the middle of the comet is the part where the highest discharge is happening. Love this picture. That's where the erosion of a single comet is happening. Would it break into twins? Yeah, probably. But let's show you what else we have. In 2015, Thunderbolt's project video, Electrochemistry of Comet 67P, in the Space News, Dr. Franklin and Uribe comments on the ESA's findings. Now, there's going to be some technical stuff in here, but let me just blow through this, and then I'll go back and point out what I think are the important parts. He says, quote, based on the recorded data and subsequent analysis, the authors proposed photoelectron impact dissociation as the mechanism action near the nucleus. This was done by comparing the ratio of relative intensities between H1 Lyman alpha, H1 Lyman beta emission lines, and subsequent comparison to previously established laboratory findings. For instance, their reported ratio was around 5 to 7 from laboratory experiments, which contrasts with the ratio of about 300 if the mechanisms were resonance fluorescence excitation. This clearly shows that an electron impact is a valid conclusion in this case. The point that I wanted to focus on in this is the very first sentence and the very last sentence. Photoelectron impact dissociation is another way of saying that the comet and its presence in the sky is due to electrical events. Electrical events. This is not the dirty snowball from Fred Whipple. This is an electrical event. And then again, he finishes up with the last sentence. This clearly shows that electron impact is a valid conclusion in this case. Cool. Now, here's something that's getting a little bit near and dear to me because these Moki marbles that you see here are in my collection. It is this author's contention that this double-lobed shape, which we just saw on Comet 67P, this shape is accomplished through an electrochemical process that could very easily be the genesis as well as the bifurcation method of the twin comets heretofore spoken of. If you notice, these are Moki marbles. They are clearly double-lobed. Oh, look, that one's even true. Double-lobed. And where are they being eroded? Right around the equator. This one, not so much. This one, very much so. This one, very much so. Doesn't that just look like a small version of Comet 67P? Now, we don't know for certain that this shape of the Moki marbles was done electrically. But we do know that these ones on the right are. Why? Because this is from C.J. Ransom's lab, VMASAT. He made these in his lab. And I'm just going to throw this in here. I am now the current owner of his lab book. It's right here next to me. We have become friends, and he was getting on and just said, look, I want someone else to take over this. And I raised my hand, and I'm now in possession of it. It is fascinating. And this picture comes from some of the data that he sent me. But he zapped dirt, just to put it in as simple terms as possible, and came up with these double-lobed spherules right there. Are the double lobes created by electricity? You bet they are. Now, here we go. Buckle up. Here comes grand finale. The authors would now like the viewers to visualize in their heads the image on the left with the image on the right and superimpose it, but in proper alignment to the Earth for a fixed polar configuration. Then take advantage of the comet path lines and imagine them as cometary tails. You got that? You're going to take the image on the right, superimpose it with the image on the left. Notice that the trajectory of Pan stars, that's the computer model trajectory of it, and there's linear. Superimpose those together with this other image, and you might end up with something that looks like this. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why we think the twin comet theory has validity. We see the Pyrrhat instability right there in the middle. We know the polar configuration was where that Pyrrhat instability was focused, and to the right and to the left, we see twin comets. Cool. The authors would like to summarize that this presentation has provided evidence of twin comets being recorded at frequency in the form of petroglyphs and pictographs, legends from multiple native and Mesoamerican tribes, as well as artwork from around the globe. This evidence supports the twin comet theory and their influence on world culture through those efforts. The authors have also provided evidence of a recent discovery of possible twin comets by NASA, although more observation is required to confirm if these are in fact twin comets or the twins of Antiquity. The event does provide significant circumstantial evidence supporting the plausibility of the twin comet theory. As always, please discern for yourself and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Dude, that was great. That was incredible.
You like that?
Wow. And your presentation was on point. You know, you're animated. Great. You kept it suspended. I love it, dude. It's good.
Wonderful. I hope that works out well.
Yeah, I've never heard of this either. Is that you guys that put this together?
That's Robert.
Wow.
So he, like I said, the story that I told is exactly how it happened. He and I would go out, would look at pictographs. He saw that, and he's like, that's interesting. That looks like a double comet. So he's like, is there such a thing as a double comet? And he found all that information. I'm like, holy crap.
Incredible. That's incredible.
It really is. And there's so many different areas to delve into to provide more evidence for it, like the Pictish symbols. Oh my God, look at the Pictish symbols.
Right.
Just if you do just a Google search on those and start looking at what they have, it'll just blow your mind. And they're not even on this continent. They're over in Europe.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into the Pictish symbols as well, for sure. Well, awesome. I appreciate it. I unfortunately don't have much more time to talk right now.
That's okay.
About to be on Rex's show with
awesome.
the Leak Project here at 8 o'clock, so I got to get all ready for that.
No problem.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Do you mind? What do you like being called? Benjamin?
Benjamin, yes. Let's do that.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Benjamin. This is a great first hangout. Looking forward to more.
We'll do it again. Hey, I enjoyed your presentation you put up on Thunderbolts. That was pretty cool. Hadn't considered that, and my mind is now expanded in a whole new area that I had never thought of before.
Great,
which was
great.
Really cool.
Heck yeah, yeah. I got a lot more weird things from different directions that who knows where they come from. I just see the symbols. It's like you guys. Looking at the symbols.
Right. Oh, please put them out there, man. I'd love to see them. I am so sick of the standard model crap. I just can't see straight anymore. So please put it out there. Love to see it.
Amen. The more and more I will, for sure. All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Have a good night.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy. See ya.
All right. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.